Apache mother asks for warmth. Cowboy's surprising response revealed an incredible transformation. Rosa huddled into her frayed coat, pulling her two children close as she entered the diner, the biting cold of a New Mexico winter clinging to her skin like an unwanted company. The warmth inside felt like a gentle embrace, yet her mind raced with the weight of choice lingering over her. It was not just the chill in the air that made her shiver. It was the gnawing fear of being seen as a burden, a failure. Would asking for help mean showing weakness? She wanted nothing more than to provide, to envelop her children in the safety and comfort their father once guaranteed. The stale air buzzed with chatter, laughter, and clinking utensils, but for her, it was muffled. Sitting in the corner, her children animatedly discussed their day, oblivious to the heavy responsibility on her shoulders. Time and again, thoughts tangled in her mind like the winter wind howling outside. Was it right to reach out? Would the townsfolk judge her harshly for seeking assistance after her husband's mining accident? Every winter, food supplies dwindled, and the bank's door felt like a fortress, its walls growing higher with each passing heartbeat. What if they turned her away? What if she lost her pride? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack sat at the counter, nursing a cup of bitter black coffee, observing the shadows dance across the walls. The rugged cowboy, with a hardened heart that had kept the world at bay for years, felt the warmth of her pleas wrap around him. Just moments ago, Rosa's whisper of desperation collided with the noise of the diner, igniting something deep within him. The instinct to turn away pulled at him, but her children's giggles stung like a reminder of pain he yearned to forget. His past echoed in her tone, shattered dreams and silent struggles that shaped his life. This woman was facing a storm he had weathered long ago. As the snowflakes swirled furiously outside, the hardened instincts he'd cultivated began to crack. What if he reached out? What would the townsfolk think? The gnawing uncertainty churned in his stomach as he wrestled with his own biases, questioning his motives and responsibilities. Did he want companionship or to just feel noble? But the moment Rosa looked towards him, searching, vulnerable in her plight, he felt the boundaries he erected start to dissolve. "You can come to the ranch if you need." The words surprised him, lingering unresolved in the air. As disbelief painted Rosa's features, the noise of judgment began to crescendo around them. Whispers of doubt circled like vultures, skeptical gazes tearing at Jack's invitation. Questions of allegiance swirled. Was he really prepared for the consequences? Would Rosa's spirit blend with his world, or would pride choke them both? He was trapped in a tangled web of intentions, a lifeline thrown into icy waters, uncertain if it would pull them closer or drown them in turmoil. Would this bond withstand the tempest of local prejudices and lingering societal scars? As Rosa's eyes reflected both hope and fear, a chilling realization dawned. It wasn't just her survival at stake. It was his own too. The atmosphere in the diner thickened as Rosa blinked, her expression a battleground of hope and despair. Jack, his heart pounding, felt the eyes of the patrons boring into him. Each glance weighed heavy, a reminder of the expectations that chained him to his past. He'd always been the lone wolf, a man of action rather than words. Now, as he offered help, the specter of his own vulnerabilities came creeping in. What did he truly want? Was he attempting to save Rosa, or was he searching for redemption from his own history? Rosa's silence stretched, each second hanging like winter ice, and Jack feared she would retreat, withdrawing back into her world of stark survival. Then he glimpsed the flicker of something, a spark of courage mingled with desperation. I don't know," she finally stammered, her voice trembling yet resolute. "It's all so foreign to me." Her admission struck him. It mirrored his own uncertainty. "This is a town that helps its own," he urged, yet a shadow of doubt loomed over his own sincerity. The ranch was an expanse of isolation. Would including her and her children mean inviting chaos into his carefully structured life? The internal conflict frayed his nerves. A push and pull gripped him. His rugged image of independence was at odds with the person he yearned to be, one who extended warmth instead of solitude. Meanwhile, Rosa's mind churned as well. Was survival truly about crafting an independent existence? Or was it about finding the strength to weave others into her narrative, to rely on their warmth rather than her own frayed edges? She's been scared to ask for help, and with every ounce of pride swallowed, a revelation began to settle. Maybe leaning on someone didn't define her as weak. Perhaps it built a bridge toward a resilience she never imagined she'd need. Jack could not deny the sincerity in her hesitation as he watched her. The critical moment surged forward, demanding resolution. "I can't promise the world," he said quietly, "but you and your children would have safety with me." It was a dangerous proposal, interlaced with complexities he hadn't anticipated. Would she embrace it, or would doubt derail what could become a new path for them both? "I need to think," Rosa finally breathed, emotion thick enough to cut. She glanced at her children, their laughter ringing like distant chimes, and Jack sensed the turmoil in her mind mirrored his own collection of burdens. A flicker of empathy ignited. He understood the weight of pride all too well. Perhaps this was an opportunity, not just for Rosa and her children, but for himself as well. As their eyes met, the exchange shifted. They were not merely strangers caught in societal expectations. They stood at the brink of an uncharted journey, both teetering on the edge of vulnerability. Jack knew this was not just about offering shelter, but making a commitment to face whatever prejudices came their way, side by side. With that thought, fear morphed into resolve. "If you need help, Rosa, then you deserve it. Don't deny yourself this chance." The conversation felt suspended in time, charged with potential, and fraught with dangers that lay ahead. Jack couldn't shake the sense that this moment was his reckoning. For better or worse, he was about to embark on a path irrevocably interwoven with the lives of two innocent children and their mother. But lurking in the corners of possibility was a shocking realization. Embracing connection could unravel all his defenses, thrusting him into a world of intimate chaos he had fought to avoid. What awaited them both? Would the bonds they forged create a sanctuary, or find them ensnared in a web of societal retribution? The mere thought of a shared future forced Jack to confront the ultimate question. What would he sacrifice to truly connect? And how would he rise if everything he knew began to shift? As he wrestled with the enormity of the moment, a new storm brewed on the horizon. Jack sat in the dim light of the diner long after Rosa had left, clutching a cup of cold coffee as though it were a lifeline. The world outside had slowed, shadowed by the weight of decisions that hung in the air like thunderclouds. His mind spiraled, grappling with the implications of his offer. He was not the man who extended himself. He was the one who built walls. Yet something had snapped within him, an uncharacteristic desire to reach across that divide. He replayed Rosa's hesitant words, "I need to think." Each syllable echoed against the previously immovable structures of his life. Structures he had worked hard to solidify against the unpredictability of connection. Did he genuinely long for this change? Or was it desperation masquerading as altruism? The stark contrast between his solitary life and a potential shared existence loomed large in his thoughts. As the diner emptied, Jack's mind drifted to the ranch, the sprawling wilderness he called home, the solitude that both comforted and tormented him. The images of Rosa's children laughing, their innocence vibrant against the backdrop of his rugged existence, surged forth. Instinctively, he resisted the pull, afraid of becoming entangled in emotions he had long denied. But then the image of Rosa's weary face transformed into one of determination, sparking a flicker of resolve deep within him. He realized that he didn't merely want to save Rosa. An equally pressing part of him yearned for salvation for himself. In helping her, he might reclaim fragments of himself lost in the barren landscape of isolation. It became clear that the chains binding him to his past could only be severed through connection, through acceptance of this messy, chaotic thing called life shared with others. He rose abruptly, the chair scraping against the tiled floor, a sound sharper than his internal turmoil. Maybe he could transform the ranch, reshape his existence by inviting them in, not as burdens but as collaborators in crafting a new narrative. With each step toward the exit, he felt the weight of apprehension begin to dissipate, replaced by burgeoning clarity. What if he found himself in teaching Rosa the ways of the land, sharing stories under the endless sky while her children ran free? The thought stirred something fundamental within him, igniting an ember of hope. Outside, dusk wrapped the skies in a muted embrace. As he headed to his truck, he felt a strange mix of excitement and anxiety coalesce into a singular focus. Reaching into the glove compartment, he grabbed a notebook, one he typically used for business plans or ranch calculations. Instead, he started jotting down the potential challenges, the societal disapproval they might face, the rough patchings of his own heart, or the unpredictability that children would bring. He could already sense the stakes mounting. They would face hurdles, and doubt would only look more convincing when looked at closely. Jack realized these thoughts weren't mere preparation. They were the outline of a plan, starkly detailed and hauntingly hopeful. He wanted to share as much as he sought to gain. There was something profoundly rewarding in envisioning a future where they could stand united against whatever came their way. But just as determination built a crescendo within him, disquiet echoed faintly at the edges of his resolve. What would the townsfolk see when they looked at him, with her by his side? Would they accept the change, or would it amplify their disdain? Gripping the wheel tightly, Jack wrested his thoughts back to Rosa and her children. He needed to find her, affirm his commitment, and frame the upcoming conversation in absolutes. This would be a defining moment. The engine hummed to life. As he sped toward home, the horizon split open, promising storms. But his newfound determination bloomed within him. He could challenge the tempest that lay ahead. The road stretched before him, winding toward uncertainty. One question echoed louder with each mile. Would he be ready for the confrontation of both external expectations and his own vulnerabilities waiting just beyond the edge of this transformative journey? With the truck's engine drowning out the chaos in his mind, Jack grasped the steering wheel tighter until his knuckles whitened. Every bump in the gravel road resonated with his inner turmoil, a painful reminder of the curveballs life had thrown him. His focus zeroed in on the ranch, its remote isolation both a refuge and a prison to him, heavy with untapped potential. Realizing how much he had previously avoided confronting any hint of vulnerability, he allowed his thoughts to wander deeper. The mere thought of opening the ranch to Rosa and her kids felt monumental. What if he failed them? What if they brought the messiness he dreadfully tried to avoid? Beyond the tangible risks, he wrestled with an intangible one, risk of failure in himself. But rather than retreating into old habits, he felt an unfamiliar sensation bubbling, an urge not just to confront those fears, but to understand them. He could practically hear his father's familiar voice echoing acceptance. The ranch had become more than a land plot. It could manifest as a second chance for both him and Rosa. His determination sharpened. Jack's mind raced with potential scenarios as he approached the ranch. Would she truly consider his proposition? Was she willing to let him into her life in a way that was uncharted for him? The road stretched on, and with each passing mile, he contemplated the different facets of the life they could build together. Rising up to meet the sunrise, the land felt alive with possibility. The ranch loomed ahead, a rugged silhouette framed against a curling horizon. Pulling the truck to a stop, he hesitated before stepping out. The towering pines whispered in the wind, urging him forward. He took a moment, letting the crisp air flood his senses, an invigorating reminder of the land's beauty intertwined with his own rugged heart. Jack crossed the threshold into the barn, where familiar scents enveloped him. Hay, leather, a hint of nostalgia tinged with loneliness. Yet today it felt different. Today it felt pregnant with the promise of change. He paused under the barn's dusty beams, allowing himself to visualize the revisions he could make to his life. A table, perhaps, where everyone could gather, stories and laughter mingling with the aroma of good food. Teaching the kids about ranch life meant more than sharing knowledge. It meant threading them into a tapestry he had spun alone for too long. Pulling out the notebook, he filled it with ideas, workshops on ranch skills, gardening for sustainability, even shared meals. Each frantic stroke of the pen connected him more deeply to a vision that had been in hiding, yearning to breathe. The enormity of his previous isolation began to dissipate, replaced by an evolving sense of purpose. Yet, just as the prospect of building this new life ignited within him, doubt crept back like an unwelcome guest. The townsfolk's voices echoed in his mind. Would they see him as a savior or a fool? Would Rosa's decision to join him amplify or diminish his standing among them? Breathing in frustration, he brushed the thoughts aside. It didn't matter. What mattered was his commitment to this unfolding journey, to taking the chaos that would undoubtedly come and shaping it into something beautiful. As he stepped out of the barn, the first rays of dawn broke across the sky, transforming the landscape with brilliant colors that hinted at something extraordinary. With a stronger sense of resolve, he climbed back into the truck, determined to meet Rosa head-on. The plan formed in his mind was clear. Not only would they face external challenges together, but their alliance would forge deeper understandings of trust and vulnerability. Jack turned the ignition. The engine roared to life, drowning out another wave of uncertainty. Just as he pulled away, the question that lingered in his mind sharpened with renewed urgency. Would she embrace the possibility of a fresh beginning alongside him, or had he lost her at the start with his bold proposal? With the horizon stretching out before him, he knew he had to find out. The time to confront his own fears and those of the world loomed closer than ever. Jack's heart pounded as he navigated the familiar roads leading to Rosa's home. Every mile felt like trudging through thick mud, each bump amplifying his mounting anxiety. He replayed the scene in his mind, how he would introduce the idea of the ranch to her, how he would convince her that it was exactly what they all needed. Yet with each rehearsal, doubt twisted tighter around his resolve. Was he out of his mind? A part of him wanted to bail, to return to the comforting solitude of his ranch rather than face the woman who had become a focal point of his buried fears. Pulling up outside her modest house, Jack inhaled deeply, the scent of the earth after the morning rain invigorating yet daunting. The vibrant colors of her garden were an invitation, and yet they highlighted the vibrancy of life that he had kept at arm's length for so long. As he stepped out of the truck, the gravel crunched beneath his boots, mirroring the uncertainty gnawing at his thoughts. He approached the door, hesitating on the threshold. What if she didn't share his vision? What if she saw only the same old Jack, the solitary figure fleeing from emotional entanglements? Shoving his hands into his pockets, he drew upon every ounce of courage to summon a confident knock. When Rosa opened the door, her eyes sparkled with warmth and curiosity, but they also held a flicker of wariness. "Jack," she said, surprise laced with a hint of caution. "What brings you here?" "Hey, Rosa, I wanted to talk," he stammered, his voice suddenly feeling inadequate. He glanced around, surveying her yard. "Maybe about the ranch?" Her brow furrowed just slightly, and it sent a rush of panic through him. "The ranch? What about it?" He sensed she was waiting for clarity, the kind that had always eluded him. "I was thinking," he began, struggling to find the right words that would not only convey his vision, but also invite her into that vision with him. "About opening it up, for you and the kids, maybe even for teaching, helping you all settle in." A moment passed in silence, each second stretching longer than the next. Jack could feel the weight of her assessment upon him, and he took a breath, planting his feet firmly. "I know it sounds crazy," he pressed, urgency creeping into his voice. "But I want to build something, a place for you all to feel safe, to grow. I can teach the kids about ranching, and together we can—" "Why the sudden interest, Jack?" she cut in, her expression shifting. "You've spent so long keeping everything to yourself. I don't want to get pulled into something that you might just back away from." Her words struck home, cutting deeper than he expected. He could visualize the old Jack, the one who had withdrawn when things got difficult, and the fear of that version rearing its head threatened to undo his commitment. "I'm not backing away this time," he replied, the conviction blending with desperation. "I need this too. It's not just about helping you. It's about breaking down the walls I've built around myself. I need to learn to connect, to be part of a family, to embrace vulnerability." Rosa regarded him narrowly, searching his eyes for authenticity. Jack felt exposed, each heartbeat echoing the swirling doubts aching to resurface. But here, under her scrutiny, he found a surprising surge of determination. He recalled the stillness of the ranch, the way it beckoned him to be bolder, to risk the familiar loneliness that had once suffocated him. "I see you want to change, but can I trust that?" she finally asked, her hesitation palpable. Jack opened his mouth, then closed it, taking in her skepticism, understanding how hard it was for her to consider this leap into uncertainty. Give me a chance, he urged, his heart racing. Let's figure it out together. I'll work hard to make the ranch a home, a community where you and the kids can flourish. What he didn't know was that her response would send ripples through his carefully structured plans. All right, Jack, but know this, it's more than just sharing a ranch. It's about sharing lives. Are you ready for that? With a shared glance that held both promise and threat, Jack realized just how much of himself he had put on the line, and with it, the tension of an impending transformation enveloped them both. Yet as they spoke, deep within him lurked an unsettling realization. More than the uncertainty Rosa represented, was he truly ready to face the mess he hoped to embrace? The wind rustled the nearby trees as they began to outline their uncertain partnership, and moments later, the familiar doubt whispered back, questioning the very roots of their fledgling connection. Would his past inevitably influence their future? Or had he finally found the strength to redefine himself once and for all? As she leaned closer, the real conversation beckoned to begin, layers of their intertwined destinies beginning to peel away. Jack sat in his truck for what felt like hours, the weight of Rosa's words compressing around his chest. It wasn't just about the ranch anymore. She had placed their emotional lives on the table, and he struggled to understand what that meant for him. His irritation simmered beneath the surface. All he wanted was to create something meaningful, yet the unpredictability of relationships felt like navigating a minefield. He replayed their conversation in microseconds. Rosa had seen through his bravado. She demanded authenticity and mutual commitment. Was he prepared to step away from the shadows that had defined him for far too long? As doubt crept in, Jack clenched the steering wheel, irritation morphing into conviction. If he wanted any semblance of the life he envisioned, he'd need to confront these feelings head-on. Deciding to return that evening, Jack envisioned the practical steps required to turn the ranch into a welcoming haven. He would build a workshop, perhaps even a small pen for animals. Each detail carved itself into his mind as he scribbled notes on the back of an old receipt. He envisioned a kitchen filled with laughter, children running about, and Rosa's smile radiating warmth as they shared meals, a stark contrast to the loneliness he had embraced for so long. But skepticism still pricked at his resolve. What if the realities of shared life tugged him back into the cocoon of solitude he had fought to break? He was acutely aware of his past failures, the way relationships had crumbled under the weight of his fear. Yet the thought of failure did not paralyze him. It ignited a fire within. After a restless night, dawn emerged, its soft glow sweeping over the ranch. Jack rose with the sun, his mind clear, focused. He needed to craft his message carefully. If he was to cultivate something new and expansive, he needed to bring Rosa with him, not just as a partner, but as a collaborator. He began the day as he always did, but today was different. He took more time with the chores, letting the morning air infuse his deliberation. As he scrubbed the barn's floor, the older Jack would have vacillated between thoughts of retreat. Now, each sweep of the broom felt like a commitment cleared of doubt. He realized that this wasn't just about getting beyond his past. It was about embracing his future. Hours later, he found himself at Rosa's door again. This time, he didn't hesitate. The moment she opened the door, something in her posture shifted, reflecting a blend of curiosity and concern. "You're back," she stated, awareness flickering in her eyes. "I wanted to clarify a few things. About the ranch, about us," he began, voice steadier than before. "I'm ready to tackle what it means to share both a space and our lives." She crossed her arms, a gesture that hinted at her guardedness. "What does that look like for you, Jack? Sharing life is layered." Jack inhaled, cutting through the tension that saturated the air. "It means transparency. I want us to set expectations and boundaries. I need you to know I'm committed to this, not just as a shelter for you and the kids, but as a real relationship where we support one another." Rosa's expression softened, but her skepticism still lingered. "And if it gets tough, what then?" He had to think fast. This moment was pivotal, not just for her trust, but for his transformation. "I'm ready to confront the bumps along the road, even if it scares me. Together, I believe we can build something significant. I'll invite your uncertainties and fears alongside my own." As the sun cast long shadows, Jack sensed a shift, a glimmer of hope in Rosa's eyes. With each word exchanged, he realized this wasn't only a fight for connection. It was a cathartic moment of self-discovery. "What if we tried it for a month?" she suggested finally, her voice low and contemplative. "No promises beyond that." Jack nodded, aware that this was both a privilege and a responsibility, a threshold he had never crossed before. "I'll take it. A month of true collaboration. Let's forge a new beginning on solid ground." As the tension of their negotiations receded, Jack felt a surge of optimism, but he couldn't ignore the gnawing anxiety deep within him, questioning whether this new chapter would bind them or threaten to unravel everything should the past resurface. Feeling the earth beneath his feet, he looked into Rosa's eyes, a rush of determination mingling with fear as he embraced the uncertainty. Would this new venture solidify him as the man he wanted to be? Or would old habits rise, consuming him once again? The path forward had never felt so both promising and precarious. The morning light seeped into Jack's small kitchen, illuminating the plans plastered across the counter. Sketches of the workshop, notes on livestock care, and ideas for creating a welcoming living space. Rosa's suggestion to try sharing a life together hung heavily in the air, a tangible yet fragile promise. Today was the day he had resolved to act, but as he stirred his coffee, the anticipation mingled with an unsettling tension. Could this step toward commitment lead him to the growth he yearned for, or would it merely expose him to the vulnerabilities he'd long avoided? With a determined nod to himself, Jack gathered the sketches and headed for the door. As he stepped out into the expansive farm, the cool breeze kissed his skin, a reassuring reminder of the solid ground he stood on. He had made promises before, but something felt different now. This journey was no longer solely about him, it was about the life they could build together. Arriving at Rosa's place, Jack felt his heart race, not with fear, but with purpose. He was keenly aware that the facade of self-sufficiency he once relied on was inadequate here. It was essential to elevate his role from mere caretaker of the land to an involved partner in their growing relationship. He had to consciously strip away the layers he had hidden behind. Rosa opened the door, her face a mosaic of emotions. The initial caution was still there, but he noticed a tentative curiosity as well. "Ready to get your hands dirty?" she asked with a half smile, an invitation wrapped in challenge. Jack chuckled, the tension easing slightly. "Absolutely. Let's talk logistics first, and then let's get to work on that workshop." As they moved through the plan, Jack was struck by Rosa's engagement in the conversation. She was assertive, her thoughts flowing freely as they bounced ideas off each other. Every suggestion or critique felt like a building block reinforcing their connection, a stark contrast to the solitary decisions he had once made. As they plotted out where the workshop should go, he realized he was no longer merely planning for himself. Her input was as valuable as his. But soon, the dialogue dug deeper than dimensions and materials. When he proposed starting with a small pen for animals, she suddenly paused, a flash of something unspoken in her eyes. Jack felt an urge to probe, to uncover what had been stirred beneath the surface. "What's on your mind?" he asked, curious but cautious. "It's just, this is a big step. I want it to be right for my kids. Your kids too," she admitted, the weight of her honesty drawing Jack in. He sensed her fear of failure, fear of commitment, but behind it was a steady flicker of hope. "I get it. If we truly want this, we can't skirt around the tough stuff. We'll face it together, one step at a time, right?" His heart raced as he spoke, grappling with the truth of his words. Rosa nodded, visibly contemplating the shift their collaboration could bring. Each barrier he tore down with honesty and openness seemed to build not just a workshop, but a foundation for something more profound, a lifeline where vulnerability could thrive. By midday, they were outside, breathing the fresh scent of grass as they marked the boundaries of what would become their workshop. Jack felt empowered. He wasn't just constructing walls, he was fortifying the framework of their shared life. With every shove of the shovel, every stake hammered into the ground, he felt more grounded in this new reality. But just as he began to feel confident, doubt slithered back in. What if he was not enough? What if his past failures surfaced like cracks in the foundations of the life they were building? The anxiety gnawed at him, a reminder that forming bonds required a risk he had yet to fully embrace. "Jack?" Rosa's voice broke into his thoughts, drawing him back from the precipice of uncertainty. "Do you really think we can make this work? I mean, beyond the ranch?" Her question hung in the air like a challenge, a test of his resolve. Jack caught her searching gaze, and in that moment, the stakes revealed themselves in stark clarity. This wasn't just a project, it was a declaration of intent. If he faltered now, he risked losing everything he had been reaching for. I believe we can, but it's going to require everything from us: honesty, patience, and a willingness to keep going even when it gets rough. There it was, the truth he had come to understand. As they resumed work, Jack felt a shift within himself, recognizing that confronting his past was just as crucial as building for the future, but he couldn't ignore the pulsing undercurrent of uncertainty. What challenges awaited them as they forged ahead? The path ahead was blurring into the unknown, but one thing was clear: their journey was only beginning, and the true test of his growth was just around the corner. Would he rise to the occasion, or would old habits threaten to unravel the very fabric of their partnership? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the newly marked ground, an intensity built in the pit of Jack's stomach. The potential of the day lay heavy with possibility, yet it also beckoned the ghosts of his past. Each swing of the hammer reverberated through him like a constant reminder of what was at stake. Not just the tangible workshop, but the intangible connection with Rosa, and the journey they were embarking on together. With rhythmic precision, Jack worked, but his mind drifted. Thoughts spun around the exhilarating prospect of partnership alongside Rosa, mingling with the creeping doubt that paralyzed him. He could see their families blending, children laughing, a vision that brightened his spirit. Yet the darkness flickered at the edges, whispering memories of his failures, remnants of relationships that had crumbled under the weight of his past. "Do you have experience with this?" Rosa asked, interrupting his reverie. She stood with arms crossed, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. He could see beneath her steadfastness a glimmer of vulnerability he recognized in himself. "Not much, but I'm eager to learn," Jack replied, forcing a smile meant to mask uncertainty. Her gaze scrutinized him, and in that moment, he could almost feel the tension in the air shift. "Eager's good, but it's not everything, Jack. The kids are used to a lot. You understand that, right?" It was a fair point, and Jack felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. What if his eagerness was not enough? What if he couldn't keep up with what being a partner and a stepfather involved? He opened his mouth, ready to deflect, but instead he found himself revealing something far deeper. "What if I fail them? What if I can't provide? I've seen enough chaos, and I don't want to bring that into our lives." The admission hung between them like a fragile thread. Rosa softened, her expression shifting to one of understanding. "I know what it's like to have that fear, but the truth is, we all have baggage. It's about working through it together, not letting it define us." Her words struck a chord, and for the first time, maybe ever, Jack felt compelled to confront his own shadows. His mind raced through the splintered relationships he'd left behind, the decisions driven by fear rather than love. This was different. The stakes felt higher, the potential rewards greater, but they also illuminated the deeper layers of his reluctance. "Okay," he said after a beat, conviction crawling into his voice. "Let's talk about our past then. What are you afraid of?" The air between them crackled with unspoken challenges, walls that needed breaking down. Perhaps this was the true construction project, one of trust. "It's not just about the farm, it's about our futures," he added, hoping to further unveil the cleft in their foundations. Rosa hesitated, the internal battle visible on her face. "I worry that my kids won't accept you or that we'll just make things more complicated. I already asked them to adapt once." There it was, the real demon they had to wrestle. A moment of silence rolled in, burdened with the weight of expectations and fears. Jack recognized this was his chance to pivot, to dig into their vulnerabilities together. "We'll change things if we hit bumps. I'll face any complication head on, but I need you to trust me with your kids as much as you're trusting me with this workshop." Jack could see her shifting gears, her eyes sparkled with a mix of hope and fear. But there was something else too, a strange resolve mirrored in his own. Building a life together didn't just require construction skills or hard labor. It required breaking down the walls of discomfort that had built up over time. As they went back to work, each hammer stroke felt more assured, each collaboration more fluid than before. Jack suddenly envisioned not just a shared farm, but a unified family, where mistakes wouldn't be failures, but lessons learned together. Yet just as confidence burgeoned within him, doubt surfaced again. Would efforts at trust be enough? Could he become the man Rosa and her kids needed without reverting to his prior self? In the fading daylight, uncertainty loomed like distant thunder, promising storms yet to come. Both exhilarating and daunting, Jack stood on the precipice of emotional evolution. Would his heart hold out under the weight of this newfound paradigm? But as the sun dipped below the horizon, a new thought crept in. What if the change he most fiercely sought came from confronting not just his past, but also the world outside the ranch? Tomorrow, they would put the plans into action, but would the reality crowd out their hopes? The layers of their partnership were only beginning to unfold. The real test awaited just around the corner, and Jack was left wondering if he'd have the strength to meet it. The morning light spilled into the workshop like a promise, illuminating the scattered tools and half-assembled projects that spoke of hard work and potential. Jack's hands moved automatically, tightening screws and smoothing surfaces, but his mind felt anything but steady. He surveyed the space, once a neglected shell, now reflecting a vision that felt both thrilling and terrifying. Today marked the beginning of their collaborative venture, and yet, each task unfolded as a reminder of the enormous expectations hovering in the air. He glanced toward Rosa, who was organizing paint cans with precise determination. There was a quiet confidence in her movements, one that he envied and desperately wanted to emulate. "Let's make it bright," she suggested, her voice breaking the silence. "Something that catches the kids' eyes. You know, make it fun for them." Jack nodded, but a knot twisted in his stomach. He felt out of place in this scene of domesticity, the setting a stark contrast to memories of his past where chaos reigned. "Yeah, I can see that. Do you think they'll trust you?" she interjected, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made him feel exposed. "You have to earn it, Jack. But it starts here, with what we're building." It was true. As they painted the walls in sunny hues, he realized that colors reflected moods and environments. He pressed the brush against the surface, contemplating how to embody a pillar of support and a figure of acceptance. If he faltered now, how could he assure them he wouldn't back down when it mattered most? With every stroke, Jack confronted his insecurities head-on. He was no longer just a craftsman. He was stepping into the role of a leader and a protector. His thoughts shifted, recalibrating from mere survival to genuine aspiration. But uncertainty clung to him like paint on his fingertips. "What if they don't like it?" he asked aloud, immediately regretting his vulnerability. Rosa paused, inspecting his half-hearted work. A crease formed on her brow, but her expression softened. "You can't think like that. You have to show them you care. Beyond this project, beyond the walls." Jack straightened, the paintbrush trembling slightly in his hand. "How? I mean, what if I just mess it all up, go back to who I was?" "You won't," she said firmly. "You're not him anymore." He took a deep breath, folding the weight of her words into his heart. They weren't just for her reassurance, they were a reminder to himself to forge a new identity. The walls around them practically spoke of renewal, marking boundaries not just of space, but of his time to grow. As the hours passed, a palpable shift occurred within him. Each laugh and shout of anticipation from the children transformed doubt into determination. He envisioned shared experiences where he would teach the kids skills, and in return, learn from them in equal measure. Yet, the specter of his past haunted him. He could still hear the echoes of his mistakes lurking in the corners of his mind. Would he be able to face them if they surfaced? The thought gnawed at him, and the vibrant colors around him began to blur. Finally, as they wiped their brushes clean, Jack made a decision. "Rosa, can we invite the kids to help? Involving them might ease the acceptance barrier, don't you think?" A smile broke across her face, a mixture of pride and relief. "Absolutely, let's build this together." With the prospect of uniting their efforts, new layers of tension unfurled. Jack's heart raced at the thought of the children acknowledging him, not just as Rosa's partner, but as a part of their family unit. The rest of the day unfolded with a mix of laughter and focused effort. Jack even felt optimism swell within him when the kids arrived, paint splattered and exuberant. They darted around underfoot, their enthusiasm infectious. But as the last strokes of paint dried, a moment caught him off guard. A seemingly innocuous question surfaced, one he hadn't anticipated, coming from the eldest child. "So, are you going to be our dad?" Time slowed as Jack's pulse quickened, the walls of their newfound sanctuary suddenly feeling constrictive. The question hung in the air like an impending storm, shifting the course of his day and possibly his future. This was the moment he never thought would come. Could he step forward and embrace the challenge ahead? The pivotal circumstance shimmered before him, beckoning both hope and fear. Jack realized it was time to confront not just who he hoped to become, but who he was ready to reject within himself. In that fragile tension, the real test of his resolve loomed larger. Would the answer he gave bolster their bond, or dismantle his dreams? The air thickened with possibility, leaving Jack to grapple with the weight of his emerging identity as a partner and perhaps more. Jack stood in the workshop, the air thick with paint fumes and laughter, feeling the tangibility of his hopes coalesce around him. The children were full of energy, each splash of color on the walls a reflection of their shared enthusiasm, a vision coming to life. But when the question came, piercing the atmosphere with an unanticipated weight, it shook him to his core. "So, are you going to be our dad?" The innocent inquiry from the eldest hung like a delicate thread, causing Jack's heart to race. The weight of that question, simple yet profound, reverberated within him. It wasn't just about titles, it was a challenge, a call to redefine not just his identity, but their connections. In that sacred moment, surrounded by laughter and chaos, he felt a surge of clarity breaking through the fog of uncertainty. Each child's bright face looked up at him, their eyes filled with hope and unspoken expectations. This was not just about paint on walls, but about building relationships that could withstand the storms. Finally, Jack inhaled deeply, drawing courage from the laughter filling the space. I want to be," he answered, his voice steady, each word a deliberate declaration. "I want to be there for you, to support you and be part of your lives, but it takes time to make that a reality. I need to earn that title." A palpable wave of relief washed over Rosa, and Jack felt it too, an electric bond forming around them. They were in this together, navigating a journey that would see them rise beyond their past fears. The children cheered, the essence of acceptance blooming as Jack realized he had stepped out of solitude, allowing the prospect of fatherhood to take on new meaning. He was not merely inviting chaos into his life, he was embracing love in its most complex form. As days turned into weeks, Jack poured himself into this new role. He became diligent in sharing the ranch's responsibilities, each chore a lesson learned not just in agriculture, but in nurturing relationships. Together they planted vegetables, tended to animals, and transformed the once lonely expanse into a vibrant home. He made it a point to sit with Rosa and the children after dinner, sharing stories around a small fire, forging connections where moments of laughter echoed under starry skies, and fears melted into the warmth of community. Each shared moment chipped away the walls from his past, revealing deeper vulnerabilities. Evenings would often turn into opportunities to confront their scars, paving a path toward healing. The shadow of what had once confined him began to dissipate. For the first time, Jack understood that nothing worth building came without risk, and that the disruptions he had so long feared would instead empower the path forward. Their partnership solidified, birthed from laughter and disagreement alike. The children learned that vulnerability did not equal weakness, and Jack discovered a newfound resilience he never thought he possessed. Together, they became a family, imperfect yet steadfast. As summer dawned, Jack stood in the workshop with a sense of accomplishment, surveying the flourishing crops and endless laughter echoing from the next room. The ranch, once a solitary refuge, had morphed into a bustling haven of collaboration and connection. When Rosa looked at him with pride and affection, he understood that they had paved their own way into the future, which was brimming with hope rather than suffering. The moment was both breathtaking and surreal. He had transformed not just bricks and soil, but also the very framework of life around him. He had taken uncomfortable steps into the unknown, and with Rosa by his side, they were forging their own legacy, a testament to endurance and love that could withstand the trials ahead. Fully aware of his metamorphosis, Jack felt the familiar notes of trepidation creeping back. Challenges awaited, the town's judgments loomed large, but he was ready. He was not just a man anymore. He was a partner, a father figure, And most importantly, Jack had finally stepped into himself, a man willing to confront the complexities of life rather than shun them. This was his evolution, a cracked facade that had allowed real light to filter in. This wasn't a finish line, it was a beginning. Standing tall in the warm afternoon sun, Jack turned towards the vibrant workshop and the laughter of his growing family. They were unfinished projects in progress, each day a new canvas waiting to be painted. And in that moment, Jack felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude for the warmth of what was finally beginning to pulse through his heart. Embrace warmth, step into vulnerability, accept the messy, beautiful life that connects us all. Make it real. Now, dear viewer, this is your moment to light up our community. You need to subscribe now for more powerful stories of personal transformation that inspire. Leave a like to fuel the algorithm. Every click counts. Comment your thoughts about Jack and Rosa's journey and how it resonated with you. And share this video with 5 friends who need to witness the incredible power of change. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel. Your engagement helps us reach those who must hear these stories. Let's spread the fire of hope together.